Did you know sliding sash windows can add value to your property? Hi, it's Tibby Singh, and in this video I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know about sliding sash windows, so come on in. I'll be going through everything from how to measure for windows correctly, how to remove old windows easily, and how to install new sash windows with a breeze, with many top tips and tricks along the way that you might not have known. So this is for everyone, from professionals to avid DIYers who want to save some money. So after watching this video, you can have a go yourself if you're feeling competent. So trust me, you do not want to go anywhere. Hey, I've not even started yet. Where are you going? Glad to see you back. First thing is how to measure for the windows correctly if you're measuring them yourself, because not all companies offer a surveying service. And why pay someone else when you can do a simple task yourself? To get the best accurate results, don't measure the old frames. Always measure from brickwork to brickwork, or whatever finished surface you have. In this case, we can measure from inside because the reveals are exposed. However, if they aren't, it's not a problem. You can measure from the outside. Your safety comes first, so if you're measuring windows at height, make sure you're using safe equipment to do this. If you're using a ladder, make sure it's safe and you've got someone footing the ladder. Alternatively, if it's at a greater height, you can use a portable scaffolding, which is much more safer and ideal for when it comes to installing the new windows. We'll get the width measurement first, and it's crucial to measure from a minimum of 3 points. Top, middle and bottom. Because you'll be lucky if the reveals are plumb or parallel. You can jot these measurements down on a drawing like this, and then you take the narrowest measurement and deduct 10 millimeters, which is 5 millimeters clearance each side. This will then give you the width of the window you need to order. Exactly the same with the height measurement. Measure from 3 points. Left, middle and right. Then deduct 10 millimeters for clearance, and that will give you the height of the window you'll need to order. If it's a big window you need to measure, you may want to get someone to hold the tape to prevent it from sagging, because you may get an inaccurate result. However, if you're comfortable with a tape measure, you can do it yourself. A tip is to use a tape measure with a wide blade. That way it's less likely to sag, and insert a little bit of pressure towards the wall and support it in the middle. Alternatively, if you've got a laser distance measure, it's so much easier and quicker. This is great if you're measuring openings all the time, but you probably wouldn't invest in one if it's a one-off measurement. Remember to take your time, and the golden rule is to measure each measurement twice. Then you're ready to get a price and order your windows. These sash windows are from Quickslide. And getting a price online is very quick and easy, as it will go through all the options for you. We just want to say a massive thank you to Quickslide for supplying the windows and doors, and Doorco for supplying the composite door slabs. Quickslide is an award-winning manufacturer of windows and doors, and Doorco work with reputable manufacturers like Quickslide to deliver robust and innovative composite doors. Now that we have the windows, we can remove the old ones. Before removing the old window, it's a good idea to double check the measurement of the opening and the new window to make sure it fits. Again, safety is important, so make sure you have all the correct PPE needed, such as gloves, safety glasses and ear defenders, depending on what equipment and method you use. If you can get to the fixings, that's probably the easiest way to remove the frame. You might need to run your blade or saw between the gap, because that sometimes can hold the frame into place. As you can see, there's no visible fixings on this frame. So what I have here is a reciprocating saw with a metal cutting blade, and this will remove the window frame within minutes. It's a good idea to remove the glass, and in this case we can remove the window as it's on hinges. It's much safer as we know the glass won't crack or smash with the vibration, and also it'll make it much lighter. The benefits of using a recip saw is that you can run it down the gap with a long metal cutting blade, which will cut through any fixings, foam and sealant. This will free the frame and release it from the aperture. However, if it's a double glazed unit, I don't think it's necessary to remove the glass as they're usually pretty solid. Alternatively, if you haven't got a reciprocating saw, you can use a multi-tool with a metal cutting blade. Just be careful when cutting the frame not to damage the reveals if they are finished, but on this refurbishment project it doesn't matter too much. If you haven't got a reciprocating saw or a multi-tool, it's not a problem. You can use a handheld hacksaw, which is basically a hacksaw blade in a handle, because obviously we can't get a standard hacksaw in between the gap. What you will need is a little bit of elbow grease. It might take a little longer, but you will get there. If you feel like you're struggling with the handheld hacksaw, or if the lugs of the frame are going into the brickwork, another option would be to cut the frame in the middle. A tip for when cutting the frame in the middle is to slightly angle it. That way the saw doesn't bind when cutting into the frame. Then you can get your crowbar and prise it, and it should come out easily. That's another reason to do the cut at a slight angle, so when prising it, it doesn't catch. I've gone through a few options and I'm sure one or combining a couple of these together will work a treat. Now that the window's out, we need to make sure the reveals are clean. If it's got some cement on the reveal, you can clean it off with a chisel bit on a hammer drill. Another option would be to use a bolster and a hammer. A tip for when chiseling off the cement is not to do it inwards or outwards, because that could potentially loosen the brick. To clean any sealant or foam from the reveal, you can use a handheld wire brush or a grinder with a wire brush attachment. Now that's all done, it's the exciting bit, to fit the new uPVC sliding sash window. The glass does come inserted in the sashes with Quickslide, which makes it easy for transport and delivery, and also less likely chance of the glass being broken. Before placing the window into the opening, it's a good idea to have everything at hand. And some of the tools and equipment you'll need are various size packers, suitable fixings. You can use window anchors that come with plugs. However, I like to use these window frame screws that don't require a plug, and I'll explain how these work when it comes to fixing the frame. Drill driver with the correct torque bit and HSS drill bit. Hammer drill with the correct size SDS bit. In this case, it's a 6mm bit. Air wedges, which are a breath of fresh air, and I'll demonstrate how these work. Some general tools such as a hammer, levels, and marking and measuring equipment. Before lifting the window in position, I always like to get the packers ready for the bottom. It's best to place the packers either side of the side jamb, because that's where the strength is and you know that the sill isn't going to bore. If you remember correctly, we've got 10mm tolerance, so ideally you'd want to place 5mm packers at the bottom, and then we can place a level on top, and with it being a long level it goes from end to end, which makes it easy when it comes to making any slight adjustments. If you haven't got a long level, it's not a problem, because the tip is to use a straight edge that goes from end to end, and then we can place a small level on top. You can make a note of the packers which you've used and put them to one side to prevent them from falling when installing the window, or you can tape them down. Whether you leave a small gap or a big gap from the brickwork, it's entirely up to you. But another good tip is to mark a plumb line either side of the reveals, which makes it easy when it comes to guiding and fixing the frame into place. And then we can lift the window into place. If it's a larger window, it's a good idea to get an extra pair of hands. You'll notice here we slid the sash up first, just to make it easier when it comes to lifting the window into place. And once it's in place, you can then slide the sash back down to make it more balanced. Once the window's in position, this is where the air wedge works a treat if you have taken the packers out. So you can slide the air wedge underneath the window, pump it up, put the packers in below both window jambs, and then take the air wedge out. Also, don't forget to put the end caps on before pushing the window frame into place. You can seal these just to make sure they don't fall out. There we go, perfectly level. Then we can slide some packers under the middle of the windowsill just to prevent it from bowing. Once it's perfectly level, we just need to check it's nice and plumb. Again, we can use the air wedges to hold it in place, which is ideal when it comes to making any slight adjustments. And once you're happy with everything, we're ready to fix the frame. Before fixing, you want to make sure you place the packers behind where you'll be screwing, and make sure they're lovely and snug, because if it's too loose, it will pull the side jamb, potentially making it out of level. Good old British weather. 1 minute sunny, next it's raining. But the good news is we've got the window in, and also we can fix from the inside. Now, there are secret fixing points on the Quickslide uPVC sliding sash window. Starting from the bottom here, if we remove this cap, which can easily be done with a scraper or deglazing tool, we can then pull this cover off, which means we can fix behind here, and the fixing is always hidden. For the top side jamb fixing, we can slide this sash down, which means we can slide this cover down again with a scraper or deglazing tool, which allows us to fix behind the cover. Again, like the bottom, the fixing is always hidden. So as mentioned, these are window frame fixings that don't require any plugs, and all you will need to do is drill a suitable size hole specified. In this case, it's a 6mm hole. It's a good idea to pre-drill the uPVC frame before drilling into the masonry. They have a countersink flathead, which means they don't stick out and hinder anything when sliding. Additionally, they have a torque head, which means they won't round off when screwing. And even in years down the line, if you need to remove the window, they'll easily come out. To determine the length of the screw, it should go into the substrate by a minimum of 50mm, and it's a good idea to screw directly where the packers are. And then we've got a hidden fixing in the middle. So if we slide this sash up, tilt it forward, lift it up either side, and we can place a fixing there beneath the shoe. That means that fixing will always be hidden in the sliding position. It's recommended to place the top and bottom fixing first before the middle fixing, just so the frame doesn't move when tilting it. You may need to countersink the hole to prevent the sliding mechanism from catching. You can use a large countersink bit, or in this case I'm using a drill bit, which is the same size as the head of the screw, and slowly drilling ever so slightly. Make sure not to apply too much pressure when drilling, as you don't want to make the hole size bigger. And once it's screwed, the screw head should be below the surface. This ensures the sash doesn't catch the head of the screw when sliding up or down. You've probably noticed I've not mentioned any fixing points in the sill, which is not necessary because it will be an eyesore, but the main reason is that drilling any holes into the sill could prevent it from being watertight. There's also fixing points along the top, and in order to take this cover off, you'll have to slide these caps down. Once all the screws are in, the caps can then be clipped or slid back into place. Same with the bottom fixings, the caps can then be clipped on, which also has an end cap which gives it a discreet look and blends in with the frame seamlessly. Once the window is fixed in place, we can then cut the packers off flush to suit. So once it's all fixed, the next thing is to form the gap. The expanding foam seals the gap that can cause any leaks or drafts and also helps with it making it more sturdy. It's a good idea to use minimal expanding foam because with high expansion foam it can push the jambs inwards, which can restrict the sash or opening from opening freely. Another little tip when using the expanding foam is to make sure the window is closed and locked into place. Then slide the right size packers in the gaps. What that does is it prevents the jambs from bowing and maintains the gaps until the foam goes off. So once this is dried, we can cut it off and seal it from the outside. Once the foam is dried, we can then remove the packers and the sash should be sliding freely. The final job is to seal the window from the outside to make it water and airtight, and also it makes it look like a finished job, so it's essential to select the right colour sealant. I think it's best to colour match the sealant to the window so it blends in, and these days there's so many colours available. Before sealing, you'll have to cut the foam back. You can even push it in slightly, but not too much, otherwise you'll go through a lot of sealant. Make sure the window is clean and free from any dirt and grease. You can do this with soapy water, and once it's dry, you can go over it with methylated spirits to make sure there's no grease on the surface. There's so many sealants available these days, but just make sure it's an external frame sealant, and that way it should have all the correct properties such as being waterproof, flexible, and not crumble in hot and cold weather. Also, there's probably many methods of sealing, so there's no right or wrong, just as long as it's done right. So I'm going to show you a method that works for me. If you're worried about getting sealant on the frame or brickwork, you can use masking tape to tape it off. However, I'm not going to use any masking tape myself. Then you're ready to cut the nozzle and start sealing. You can adjust the width of the bead by cutting it more or less, depending on the gap you're sealing. So the gap around the window is around 5mm, and you can see the diameter of the hole is around 5mm too. This is another reason to get the measurement right when measuring for the windows, because you don't want a big gap and have a big silicone bead that can look unsightly, as you just want it to blend in with the window. With a decent silicone gun, we can then run a bead down evenly. This is where the magic happens, because all you need is a wooden stick like this with a 45-degree cut at the end. And the end is a width of the silicone bead. You can make a few sticks at different sizes if you have different size gaps. So what you do is have a bottle of soapy water to hand and spray a little bit on the end of the stick. What that does is it prevents the silicone from sticking to the stick, and it just glides over the surface, making sure you get a lovely smooth finish. You don't want to spray too much soapy water because you don't want to affect the properties of the silicone and make it less adherent. Or you can spray a little bit of soapy water onto the silicone bead or your finger and just smooth it down with the finger. There we go, such a simple trick and you get a professional finish. Then we can install the trickle vents, and the good news is they don't require any fixings as they just clip into place. Same for the inside, and these do match the specified finish colour inside and out, so blend in seamlessly with the window. And finally, the finishing touch, which are the sleek handles, and these will definitely make it easy when it comes to sliding the sash open. These can be drilled and screwed with self-tapping screws. These can be screwed to your preferred position. There's a whole range of hardware, from different colours to finishes depending on your style. There we go, a Quickslide uPVC Legacy Sliding Sash Window fitted perfectly. We hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, and also let us know if you're a fan of sash windows. Please don't forget to subscribe to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.